Hi everyone, it's Kathy here from Kathy Loves to Scrap, back with another layout for you today. This time it's a layout for Scrapasketch, part of my creative team work. It is a promotional one and I'm using a sketch from the Premium Scrapasketch website where Lisa has exclusive sketches for you to work with. Come along and join us at www.scrapasketch.com or on Facebook. This one is sketch number 44 and it's a January 2024 sketch from Lisa's exclusive range. I can't show you the sketch because it is from the premium package. This is a photo taken at Christmas time up at the Hunter Valley Gardens with my daughter, and I'm using some red Kaiser Craft stock as my base. I've got some scraps here that I may or may not use. I have this paper here that I'm going to use as the complementary part, and this uniquely creative wood panel sheet for my layout base. I originally thought I would use that branding strip, but in the layout I actually change it based on the colours, and you'll see that as we progress through this video. From Uniquely Creative, I'm also going to fussy cut these flower elements for clusters on my layout. And I'm going to start by first of all cutting out my frame. And remember, Kaiser Craft always have this branding strip. It's about 1/4 of an inch, so I'm going to cut that off so my page will be 12 by 12. I'm then going to cut my 1 inch all the way round frame, and this allows me to use the inners of this cardstock on my layout. It's I find it a waste if I just put everything over the top of a full sheet of cardstock, whereas I can incorporate it into my layouts. Now I'm going to take the wooden one and I'm going to take 1/4 of an inch off the top and the side, only of each one, because I only want to have a little frame where the red is peeking out from underneath. And I just turn it around to make sure that I've got it the right way so that it's exactly fitting nice and neatly. I don't know, for some reason the cardstock, you just need to get it the right way to make it fit. Using Tim Holtz's Distress Ink Oxide in Gathered Twigs, I distressed the edges of the wood panelling, and that gives it a bit of a shadow to create a depth against the red frame. I use Gathered Twigs a lot. That's my favourite go-to. I'm going to use the double-sided tape, which I put around all 4 edges so that it is secure in place on the frame. This I find is really important, particularly if you are building a page with multiple layers. It gives it that extra sturdy support. I know other people use just minimal amounts of adhesive, but I like to actually make sure it's firm. I use Xpress It tape, double-sided, as my priority tape. I am making sure that the first one is in correctly so that the frame sits flat, and then I remove 1 strip at a time of the double-sided tapes so that it does fit nice and flat and it sits on the frame in the correct spot. And I've got a nice finish there, and I flatten it with my hand. That's really important because you want it to sit nicely. Using the pink one with the Santa hats, I'm going to create my first panel. And this, I cut off the branding strip from the pad of paper it came from. And I'm going to cut it at 6 inches across. And then I'm going to cut it at 10 inches. So I have a panel for this one that is 6 by 10. And that's to sit on the right-hand side of my page, as you can see. Some people like to measure from the edge to make it accurate. I tend to just eyeball it roughly and line it up. And with this paneling, it makes it easier because there are straight lines. Once again, I distress the edge so that it's got some depth to give it a lift off the page. And I used the Gathered Twigs again. As I said, that's my favourite go-to. It gives a nice blend to the edge and makes it look a little bit aged, which is very, pleasing to the eye when you actually look at a layout. So I've just made sure that that fits in there nicely, and I'm going to place it against my wood grain. Alright, I'm just kind of planning whether I'm going to fussy cut anything out of there, but I don't think so. I'll just leave it today. Alright, the next thing, once again, I'm going to use my double-sided tape. I prefer Xpress It, but sometimes I use other brands if I haven't got any. So I'm taking off the tape and I'm going to put that into place because I know that that's the panel that's going to the bottom. And I put that into place. As I said, I eyeball it roughly to make sure that it's straight and it's where I want it to be based on the sketch that you can find at www.scrapasketch.com in the premium sketches. I always use double-sided tape. Now, the sketch called for 6 small squares, which could either be photographs or embellishments or whatever you think you'd like it to be. I'm actually going to cut my photo into 6. I'm using a 5x7 photo. And oh dear, I know people get a little bit worried about cutting photos, but this actually works nicely. And as I said, it's my daughter up at the Hunter Valley at Christmas time. And she was being a bit of a clown and thought I wouldn't take the photo, but of course I did. And now she's got her photo, which I'm sure she would be horrified if I'm talking to you about. But I will. Once it's taken, it's taken. So I'm cutting these photos, this one photo, into 6 parts. And that is the equivalent on the sketch. And the sketch had 6 photos or 6 parts or 6 elements, and I'm using my photo in 6 parts. I'm going to take the red that I cut out of my frame section and I'm going to use that as my mounting piece for this photo, and it matches the red chair and makes the photo pop, which you'll see as I do this. Doing each square individually allows me to line it up and make sure that it's all going to look properly aligned, and allows for a cohesive look to the photos as I patch it back together. And when you see the finished thing, it looks as though I've put it behind a window frame. And I'm just putting in the first row. As you can see already, it's coming back together as a photo. It looks like, well, I feel it looks like it's been put behind a window frame, and that's what you would see if you were looking through the window. And as you can see, because I had cut it appropriately, it all matches in and looks together as a photo again. And I've got to make sure that all of that is down nice and flat because you don't want any bows or bubbles in it. Taking my slide cutter, I am now going to trim it down, and I always put the photo to the outside because it's easier when you're cutting it off the cardstock, I find, to be actually backward looking at it. And then on the side, I'm just going to trim it down, and now I have got my photo matted. I have the 6 components that are a part of the sketch, but I have done it with one photo. Now I'm going to put in the strip to the top and the bottom, and I've chosen the red with the blue dots because A, it matches the colours in the photos, and it gives a nice pickup to the panel underneath, the one with the Santa hats. So I'm going to use my gathered twigs again. I'm going to just edge it quickly with the distressed ink so that it all marries together and pulls the layout into one cohesive piece of art. Alright, turning the photo over now. This is how I do it. I'm sure there are other ways of doing it, but this is how I find that I get it into the right place that I like. I put the double-sided tape into place along the edges of the photo panel, and then I'm putting one in the middle because obviously that's where I'm going to stick it when I put it down flat for my final layout. Using the panels that I cut out and have distressed, I'm now going to line them up so that they meet exactly at the same point, top and bottom. And this can be a bit fiddly, particularly when you have a pattern, because it can make the eye think that you've got it straight when you haven't. So be careful on that because it looks funny when it's not straight. And ignore the cut lines because I know that my strip of paper that I was cutting was not exactly straight, so that's why I used the top and the bottom of the cuts, because they were the straight part of the paper. And I'm carefully placing it in the right spot using my eye. I know people use rulers, they use their mats to the side to measure to make sure, but you know, it's a cohesive thing. It's what looks right, and as you can see, you can quickly adjust if you don't press down tight until you are happy with the final product. Grabbing with my tape again, I'm now just going to run back across there because I want to make sure that this sits nicely on the page and is in solidly. I leave a little bit of gap just in case I want to tuck in some of my embellishments underneath. Taking the photo, I place it onto the page as per the sketch, so it's slightly off the panel, so you see the panel around the top and around the side, and the photo itself moves onto the wood paneling, and it actually makes it stand out. Now I need to add a strip down the side, and I originally was going with this black and white dot, but I don't actually think it looks right with the colours of the page. So I've gone through my stash and I've looked for another branding strip that could match, and I found this red and white stripe one, which I'm using. I always keep my branding strips when I cut them off. You never know when they're going to come in handy. They are great for borders, they're great for tags, they're great for banners. So I've put this one in as per the sketch, and I'm pretty much sticking to the sketch pretty closely. So you can see how versatile and how easy it is to pull a layout together. Alright, so everything is now down nice and tight on my layout, and I've followed it right to the letter so far, and now I'm going to have a title. I think it's a little bit flat for me, so I'm going to take into consideration some fussy cutting. And I'm not only the clusters that I indicated off this page, as you can see, I'm going to use the flowers, the decoration, the holly, and I'm going to use that to build my embellishment clusters. I've also gone and done my journaling strips, my title, which I cut out using metal dies, and I've also cut out the hats and wreaths from the pink one. Alright, so I've put down my journaling strip there, and I'm going to use tacky glue, which is my favourite adhesive glue, and I'm placing in the clusters slowly. So the first one I've just laid down flat, then I'm using my pop tape and I'm going to put the ornament that's hanging from that holly cluster up, and I've popped that second lots of flowers to make it stand up. I've popped a Santa hat here, putting pop tape down on the wreaths there to make them stand out above the paper so it's not flat. I'm now going to glue this cluster of flowers down the bottom into place so that you will see this brings the three clusters between the top flowers, the bottom flowers, and the journaling. That makes a cluster of three, draws the eyes through the triangle, and that's very pleasing. I'm now gluing in my title, which I've titled Big, for lots of reasons. Big chair, and as my daughter says, her big butt. But she likes to think that's the case. But I've just called it Big for that reason. I added this little bit to my layout, which was different to the thing, which was the holly in the corners. And now I'm using a fine line red pen to add faux stitching around the edge so that I'm creating a second frame within the frame. It looks like it's been sewn, and with my white gel pen I am going around the edge of my journaling strips just to add a little bit of detail and make them stand out just a little bit from the photo and the layout. So as you can see, that has come together nice and easily. I always use a date stamp on my layouts if I particularly remember the date, but mostly the month. Now I'm going to use some Cosmic Shimmers in the clear for the hats, and I'm using the red to put the berries in the holly so that they'll be nice and sparkly and look very Christmassy. It still needs a little bit more on there, and I'm just going around to the holly to make sure I get everything and give it a bit of a sparkle. I'm going to finish it off with clusters of 3 dots so that they're in 3 spots in the gold glitter, and that will reflect the wood panel in the layout. Now this is the tricky part. Using white watercolor paint, I'm going to add some paint splatters. Now I know people will put something over the photo, and normally I would have probably done the paint splatters before, but I wasn't sure I was going to add that until the last minute. Of course I do everything backwards, and I just, because with watercolor it's pretty loose, I can quickly take it off my photo and it doesn't leave a mark. So I'm just adding some more water across. Need to add more water to make it nice and runny so that it does splatter. You can either do it by tapping the paintbrush with another instrument. You can do it by just tapping the paintbrush on your finger and it will go. And sometimes when I sit back and look at it, I look and think, where am I going to put some more? And does it look like it's got enough? And that takes a little bit of thought. But I make sure I've got all those little stray dots off my photo. Add more water to it because I've decided it needs a little bit more. I'm going around by hitting it. And over here to the side, yep, just make sure I clean it up a little bit before it dries. And that's really important. Another way is, of course, covering the photos, but because I've got wet stickles on there, I'm a bit, I won't put anything over the top. Over this side, I'm actually going to use my finger to flick it to give it a little bit of splatter along that, just that, control it across that panel. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that and how it turned out. Remember, this is sketch number 44 from there. You can see the white splatters there on the cardstock down in the corner. You can see the water there, and you can see where I've popped up those elements to give it some dimension to the page. So scrap with whatever you have, and remember, this is sketch number 44 from the Premium pack. I hope you like what I've done. If you do like it, don't forget to like me below and subscribe to stay tuned for future ones in the future. This one, as you can see, is my layout big. It's for sketch number 44 from www.scrapasketch.com in the Premium sketches for January. If you follow me or you go to Scrapasketch and you'd like to purchase some of the printables or the stencils, use my code KathyLovesToScrap10 at checkout and you'll get a 10% discount off your items. Thanks for watching now, and I'll be back soon with a new video.